Oh, I got to put us on the screen there, everybody. All right. I'm like, why is it so quiet? What the hell's going on? Welcome, everybody, to the ArmChair GM show. That's right. That's where you are on the Talking Jets Network. My name is GreenBean. That is what they call me. Oh, look at Tigo. Look at us. And that is Talking Jets with Tigo himself. I don't know if you guys know this, but Tigo was very, very under the weather this week. So we are happy that he is among the living and back with us. Tigo, my friend, how are you this evening?
Great, finally. Thankfully, because I don't know. I thought I was gonna have to send a goodbye video at the beginning of this week with how bad, and then it just turns out nope. I was just being a little girl. It was just allergies.
Oh, little girls get sick, though, do they?
Yeah,
I see what you're saying there.
And a big baby, apparently, according to my wife.
Yeah, well, that's what my wife says all the time. Like, look, I'm as tough as they come, everybody, tough as nails. But when I get sick, see, it's a funny thing because it becomes very emotional for me. I you know what it is, Tigo? I don't like being incapacitated. I don't like not being able to contribute. So I always think she's mad at me too. I'm like, are you upset? Are you, I can't, I'm sick. She's like, stop it. You're sick. I'm like, oh, you mad at me? Like, I even go there. She's like, dude, when you are sick, you are the biggest baby in the world.
And it's hilarious because I'm the same way. I hate being sick. And it's just because it's one of those things that, like, I think, or at least I was, I can't assume, but, like, I was raised on the, like, walk it off, rub some dirt in it, like, keep going, right? But when you're sick, there's no just walking it off. There's no, like, just powering through. Like, you can will yourself through an injury. But when you're sick, there's nothing you can do. I hate it so much.
Yeah, that's really something. So we're glad T goes back with us, and everybody's in good health. So Todd is here. Austin's here. Matt is here. Matthias Simon. Todd is in the house. Good to see everybody tonight. And we're going to talk some Jets football for you. First thing I want to bring up here before we get into some quarterback stuff, let's do a little recap here. We are officially in this is the month of the draft, Tigo.
Yep.
So this is where it all gets pretty active. This is where, we start to, and I mean active by smoke screen season. This is where all the stuff picks up. We don't know what it is. We got Josh Myers going to steal Tippmann's job. We had obviously the rumors of the Jets trading up for a quarterback that died because we signed Justin Fields and so AVT, if Josh Myers is going to take Tippmann's job, what does that mean for Tippmann? Obviously, he's definitely good enough. You don't put a guy like that on your bench. You know what I mean? So does that mean Simpson gets relegated to the bench? Does that mean AVT gets kicked out to right tackle? They said no, so it's confusing, right? So let's do a little recap of where the Jets are here. First thing we'll start with is our free agent signings and departures. And we're going to look at it through the lens of the comp pick formula here. I love this. So as you guys know, we'll start with the guys we lost, right? We lost DJ Reed. I don't think there any way you slice it, that's a loss, right?
Yeah.
Now he didn't want to be here. He wanted to. He was very complimentary on his way out, so he took the high road. He maintained his professionalism. He could have thrown stones like so many of these people do. You heard about, Mike Williams said last year he just wants to forget it ever existed. It was the worst year of his whole career. We've heard the same thing from guys like Mecole Hardman. Obviously, Reddick, too, said the same shit. I don't know what last year was. Now, Reddick's was because of his own making. I don't know whatever complaints he has. You can look in the mirror for that one. But we lost DJ Reed. He's over there with the
I would also say Mike
Lions.
Williams is in that same boat. Last year was weird because of his own making. You didn't have to drop the ball that many times.
Yeah, right. What are you doing?
And then, and it's not just the Jets. Like, you went to Pittsburgh and you caught one pass
for a touchdown.
Like, that was it all year. And they desperately need wide receivers. Like, they just traded for DK. So, like, both of those guys can go shut up.
Yeah. I just find it funny that, we couldn't find a way to use the 2 free agent wide receivers that we brought in, paid some money, and then midway through the year, we got to trade them elsewhere. It's just a weird thing. But anywho, we lost DJ Reed. We did lose, as I mentioned, Hassan Reddick as well. He got signed quicker than I thought, quite frankly.
Yeah.
With the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if I remember correctly, Tigo. Javon Kinlaw, another surprising one. He got a rather large contract with the Washington Commanders, a team that the last year looks like they got their head screwed on straight. And they decided to give him a 3-year, $45 million contract. I mean, I don't know, $30 million guaranteed. Maybe their heads are screwed on straight and they know what to do with them. We didn't, it seemed. I don't know.
I think there's a lot of stuff. I could go on a total tangent on Washington because I've had this conversation with a buddy of mine. But like, I think that there's a lot of good decisions being made alongside bad decisions being made in Washington. And I think they're going to get a lot of forgiveness for some of the bad decisions that they're making, like the Javon Kinlaw signing, in my opinion. I don't necessarily think that trading for Deebo Samuel was a good decision, but they're going to get forgiveness for those things because then they went out and they traded for Laramie Tunsil, which is huge, right? Yeah. And that's a massive boost. And they drafted Jaden Daniels, and he wasn't the first quarterback taken off the board, and he looks like the best quarterback in that draft class. So, like, they're going to get a lot of rope for a lot of these weird decisions that they're making because, well, they got the quarterback right, and that's all that matters.
Right. And that can cover a lot of inadequacies, right? Like, you get that right. And they say too, winning cures all ills. Winning covers mistakes. Winning does all that stuff. We just don't know what that is. So our ills, our inadequacies and deficiencies get put under a microscope and become more glaring because we don't win. So that's the whole thing. So yeah, look, every organization is going to make good moves and bad moves and all that jazz. It happens. But Kinlaw's down there in Washington. Morgan Moses left and got himself a nice end of his career contract with the Patriots. And they got quite the coaching staff. So I think Morgan Moses is going to be an asset there. We know he'll play through injury and all that stuff. Tyler Conklin ended up getting signed with the Chargers or the Rams. Which one was it? Chargers? I think it was.
Wait a second.
Shame.
Chargers.
I mean, the Jets, it looked like we had no interest in him, which leads me to believe we have a plan at tight end. So let me see. My guy's not even on this list. It's crazy. We also lost Kenny Yeboah. He's not even on our list. I don't even know.
Because he doesn't count as a...
That's crazy. I know, but neither does the other three. So Solomon Thomas, we lost. He went to the Saints, was it? Maybe? I forget where he went. Ashton Davis went to the Miami Dolphins. And Brandon Eccles got signed by... Where did he go? He went with... Where did he go again? Brandon Eccles got signed... He went with somebody else, one of our other players.
Pittsburgh.
Who else went to Pittsburgh? Maybe not. So we lost some really, some guys that we've had for a minute, DJ Reed, Brandon Eccles, Ashton Davis, Solomon Thomas. We lost these guys. So interesting, but nobody that other than DJ Reed, and you could argue Tyler Conklin, but nobody else that, makes you want to cry.
List, Reddick went to the Bucks, Conklin went to the Chargers, Kinlaw to the Commanders, Solomon Thomas to the Cowboys, Ashton Davis to the Dolphins, DJ Reed and Kenny Yeboah to the Lions, Morgan Moses and Wes Schweitzer to the Patriots, Lecky Fotu to the Raiders, Devontae Adams to the Rams, and Brandon Eccles to the Steelers.
Lecky Fotu to the Raiders? Wow.
Those are all of the players that were on the New York Jets roster in 2024 that are now on a different team in 2025 as of right now.
Look at that. So, guys, we signed, as you know, like Billy SBC is talking about here. Justin Fields was signed. We brought on cornerback Brandon Stevens from the Ravens. We went down to Jacksonville and got a free safety, Andre Sisco. In my opinion, the finest of the... This is not a good list. This is I got it. No, this
we signed 12 players.
Give me a better list.
If you go on over the cap, you're already on it. The free agency tracker, and then sorted by New York Jets. We signed Brian Cowart.
Hold on, let me get it up on the screen before you.
From the Bears.
Where's my Jets? Where's my Jets? Come on, guys. Oops. New York. Where are they? There they are. The New York Jets. Okay, here we go. This will be better. But I wanted to point out, too, so 2 of our free agents losses still count as comp picks. So right now we're looking at a 4th and a 7th round pick, which is pretty nice. All right, let me do this. So I'll get this one up here for you guys. There we go. So we'll do this. 2025. So look at all these guys. There's a lot of movement. All right, so we'll start at the top here. Well, we don't forget, right? We lost. Oh, where's Tigo? Did I knock Tigo off? Did I put you off? I'm sorry, Tigo. Sorry.
I went to go to my other monitor and I just went so quickly. I accidentally.
Oh, you did it.
Closed out of everything.
All right. We lost. So don't forget, we also lost Devontae Adams. Look at this list. It's really kind of crazy. Devontae Adams is gone. Hassan Reddick is gone. DJ Reed, as I mentioned, and Kinlaw, Conklin, they're gone. Tyron Smith is probably a wrap. We could put a bow on Smith, I think. Unless somebody, I think he's the kind of guy that might get signed if there's a major injury in training camp or something like that, or during the season.
Yeah, he's going to stay healthy so that he can try to get one more shot at it.
One more little burst of cash before this thing's a wrap. Morgan Moses, as we mentioned, Pats, Justin Fields. So wait, Josh Reynolds was signed. Okay.
Yep.
We lost Solomon Thomas, Ashton Davis, Wes Schweitzer, Leaky Fotu. Chuck Clark is still a free agent.
I think he's done.
Yeah, I think so too. Kenny Yeboah, as we mentioned, also at the Lions. Jalen Mills. I would love to see the Jets bring him back. But if they got a plan at safety, we're going to go young. We're going to use one of our day 2 picks on a safety. That would make me very, very happy. There's quite a few. There's a nice batch I like in this draft, Tigo.
I am very, very worried about the safety class in this draft. I think there are 5 guys that I would feel comfortable going for, and that's it.
Yeah, but the thing is that you can get them on day 2.
Like if you can get a guy in the second round, do it. And I think that if one of those top 3 make it to that pick 42, I would seriously have a serious conversation about going and getting them. But I get really scared once you get to those 3rd, 4th round guys. I'm just not a fan of those guys.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see. I mean, there's I think the fact that we're looking really, I think, for strong safety too, with the signing of Cisco, you're looking at strong safety. I feel like there's a nice batch of strong safeties. If I needed that real, center fielder type ball hawk, I feel like that's a little bit slimmer pickings.
Yeah.
So I think that's exactly the way you would do it. Like in a draft, like if you look at it and you need a bunch of safeties, getting one, and you got to get one in free agency because you need them. Going free safety, I think, was smarter. Because there's more of the strong safety variety in the draft. So we brought in Stone Smart, as you guys know. Re-signed Irv Charles, re-signed Tony Adams, Xavier Newman, Jamie Sherwood, as you guys know, was re-signed. Jamin Davis is going to stick around. Nwangu stayed with the Jets. We brought on Jay Tufeli, defensive tackle. We brought on Byron Cowart, another defensive tackle. Tyler Johnson, the wide receiver. The wide receivers that we brought in don't necessarily get you all pumped up, but rounding out the bottom end, I think, is, what we're doing here. Brandon Stevens, the cornerback. Andre Cisco, we just talked about, the free safety. We brought on center Josh Myers. They said he's going to push Tippmann, which is all he needs to do, because I think Tippmann, needs to be on this damn starting 5.
I agree.
In my opinion. Let's see. We got
graded out as like the 3rd best center last year.
Yeah, crazy. Chris Boyd. I don't know how I feel about Chris Boyd. I mean, I don't know what that is.
Just a depth
Yeah.
signing. You lose Eccles, you got to bring somebody in.
Yeah, right. So we got Okafor for to play, our depth at right tackle. And the good news, look, he's got starting experience. So again, I'm a big fan, Tigo, of raising the level of your depth as well. A lot of people don't focus on that so much. We're looking at our starters, but as we know, injuries happen, especially here at the New York Jets. We see it year in, year out. And that was one of Joe Douglas's inadequacies, is that the depth wasn't always there, particularly on the offensive line. We had depth elsewhere. Wide receiver, offensive line, I think were Joe Douglas's undoing, really. So having
and I don't think it was necessarily just his fault. I think he brought people in, and then this coaching staff ran them out of the building. Yeah. We saw it with Denzel Mims. We saw it with Elijah Moore. We saw it with Mekhi Becton. We saw it with, I always forget his name. We brought him in as a guard from the Raiders, and then he ended up leaving and then suing us.
Oh, Kelechi
Osemele. We bring guys in, and then we run them out of town by having with the PRV staff of just being hey, this guy did 3 things really, really, really damn good in college. Instead of asking him just to do those 3 things while we teach him the rest of the sport,
right?
Nah, you have to learn how to be essentially a quarterback before you can see the field.
We need you to learn how to be a shifty slot. It's why?
That's not your job, and we're never going to line you up there. You're literally an X who's supposed to run as fast as you can, but no, we're going to do that. And then with Elijah Moore, it's just
we're sending Elijah Moore streaking down the sideline. Why?
Even though he has, still to this day, one of the most impressive 3-cone drills I have ever seen in my life.
It's crazy.
It's
crazy what they did with him.
And really, we're not going to ask you to run any routes, which was your specialty at Ole Miss. We're just going to have you run as fast as you can and never
Right. And he's not a contested catch guy. So when you got a cornerback sticking to him, because his long speed wasn't his attractive aspect, not that he's slow, but his quickness was his he's a surgeon in the middle of the field. That's what you wanted. And those first couple years, we just ruined guys. That's what this staff did. So bring in some guys on. Who else we bring in? So we got obviously Justin Fields. Josh Reynolds is the most recent wide receiver that we brought on, and that's gonna do it. So
fun fact, I think we added 1 ton in terms of just weight onto the defensive line in free agency. I think I saw that somewhere because we brought 3 just massive humans on the interior of the defensive line.
And hey, that's what we will ask for, right? Big fat fatties. That's what we want. So the Jets, the last number of years, look, you can't take anything away from Salah's ability to create a good defense. Our defense was our pride and joy, and you give it to him. But the real downside of that defense was teams could run on us. And particularly last year, it was from the word go, you want to beat the Jets, just run up the middle. That's what you got to do. And that's the most humiliating thing in the entire game of football is getting run on up the middle of your damn defense, up the gut. Our buddy Jake checking in. Jake Asman, welcome to the show. He says, you can feel the magic of Jets football. It's starting. April's when it starts, Jake. Yep. That's what it is. So we were just talking about it prior to this stream. We do the Beanbagger Discord meeting on Wednesday nights, and we just talk some shop. And we were saying, it's this draft, some people aren't quite as excited about it. And I can relate, especially coming off of last year. Last season was, you don't want to talk about a kick in the nuts. Last season was about as tough, if not the toughest season I can recall. Even the disappointment of having a good team and coming up short, that's obviously very, very painful. But having the hype and the hope and the talent that the Jets had last year to come away with 5 wins is just ridiculous. And losing 6 fourth quarter games and leads, and the kicker losing 3 games all by his lonesome is just it's unbelievably painful. So then you look at this draft, and it's just one of those drafts without a juicy top end. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's easy to see why some folks aren't quite as amped for this one. But now, as we get into April, it's April 2nd. and the draft is just a couple weeks away, you can feel it. You know, the excitement starts to trickle back in. At least for me, I can feel it. You know, I'm starting to get amped up for the Talking Jets live stream extraordinaire. We do 3 days, the full gamut of the entire draft. We're live as we are every single year. Ryan and Matt OLeary and myself, we do the whole thing for you. We call it a marathon. We do. And that's going to be a blast. So I'm really excited to do that with you guys. That'll be right here on the Talking Jets Network. But yeah, so I'm getting excited. Jets got pick 7. What will they do? We have an entirely new regime. We don't know these guys, Tigo. So let me ask you this. Going over our free agents and stuff, how did we do heading into the draft from your perspective? You're a GM mindset. How did the Jets do in free agency, setting our draft up?
I think that both of these guys came in with a very, very clear and concise philosophy on how they were going to build this team. And I think that we see that from their free agency and like how they attacked it. Because like when I look at the guy, like we signed 3 interior defensive linemen, all of them over 300 pounds. That's saying something. That's saying like you're not going to run the ball on us. And then the 2 signings that they did in the secondary are both would be considered projects, right? So that tells me something. That tells me like no. This defensive line is not going to be the reason we lose games. We're going to create pressure. We're going to stop the run. We're going to get the job done on the defensive line, and in the back end, we're going to coach it up. We're going to create. Coverage is going to be dictated by the pressure that we create up front. And that's something that we should be used to when we look at what Salah did and everything like that. And then offensively, we saw a very similar mindset, which is just like, look, we're not going to do the sexy thing. We're not even going to do like what might be considered the smart thing. We're going to do the safe thing. We're just like, that's it. Let's just be safe. And I think that when you look at, because I did a really deep dive into what Moogs did in Denver since 2022, because that's when he became the assistant GM. That's when he could have influenced decisions really from 2022 to 2024. And then the same thing with Aaron Glenn from 2021 to 2024 in Detroit. And I looked at like, what did they learn? And I think that we have a very clear picture of how they're going to build this team and the way, like specifically, that they're going to go about it, because it tells us a lot about the free agent moves, and it tells us a lot about what they think about the roster. Because if they thought that we were ready to compete, they would have gone all in, and they very, very clearly haven't. And it's very, very reminiscent of early days in Detroit in 2021 and in 2022. They knew that they weren't ready to compete then. So they built the pieces around when they needed to make the move. And we know that both of these guys come from organizations that aren't scared to make a big swing at quarterback. In 2022, the first year that Moogs was in AGM, they go and they trade for Russell Wilson in what is probably going to go down as the second worst trade in history outside of the Deshaun Watson one. But then, also, I believe in 2022, or it might have been, I think it's 2022, the Detroit Lions traded for Jared Goff. Which is that one worked a little better trades in history. And so we know that they're not scared to make the move when they feel the roster is ready. And so they very clearly told us what they think about this roster. And I think they've been very, very clear on what the plan is at 7, while not telling you directly. I think if you read between the lines, they've kind of told you what the plan is at 7.
Well, talk about it. So tell me the read between the lines.
I think that the move is Membu. Because when Darren Muji was not, it doesn't even necessarily have to be Membu. It might be Membu, it might be Campbell. Regardless, I think that the move at 7 is probably going to end up being a tackle. And the reason I say that is, when Moogs came in, his first free agency that he was in AGM and all of those things, the 2 big signings that they made was, hey, they traded for Russell Wilson And in that trade, they traded away Noah Fant, which was an excellent tight end, right? Like he was a part of negotiating that, and they sent away a really, really good tight end. I'll come back to argue that same exact points, right?
Yeah.
But they signed to big money a guard and a tackle. Those were the first moves that they made. Big money to McGlinchey, big money. I believe his name was Ben Powers. 2022. No, Evan Ingram was who they brought in. Then they signed Matt Pert, and then the following year it was Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey. Like they threw so much money at the offensive line while trying to make Russell Wilson work as a quarterback, and it just didn't work. And the same thing happened in Detroit. In 2021, they had the same option. Do we not remember the 2021 draft? The conversation in the 2021 draft was, what are the Bengals going to do? Is it going to be Jamar Chase or is it going to be Penei Sewell? And they went Jamar Chase. And then the Lions came up at the 7th pick. And then the conversation for the Lions was, are they going to take Penei Sewell or are they going to take Kyle Pitts? In both instances that we see.
Kyle Pitts was gone already. Kyle Pitts was gone for 4. Yeah. Pick 4.
I thought Kyle Pitts went later.
No, hold on. NFL draft. Yeah, I'm almost certain of it. Let me see.
I thought he went right after.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts was pick 4, right?
Oh, he was pick 4. So I'm sorry. Either way, they went Penei Sewell and asked them if they're upset about it.
No, they're pretty happy.
And so, look, regardless of what the thing is we know, regardless of how you feel about Justin Fields, we know his limitations as a quarterback. And if there's anybody who knows how to make a limited quarterback work, it was Detroit, because we know Jared Goff is a limited quarterback. And the plan was secure the trenches, make that work, and prioritize the weapons after the offensive line is working. And that's what they did, because like in that same draft, the Penei Sewell draft, the first year he's there, they took 2 defensive linemen and an offensive lineman before they made any other pick. Their first 3 picks were in the trenches.
Right.
And if they just signed 3 defensive linemen, I think I think it's leaning towards Membu.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter how many pass catchers you have if he can't stand up right.
Yeah, I see that. At the same time, and that's a logical argument. And I don't think I wouldn't debate it saying it's wrong to think that way, but I don't think it's necessarily as rock solid as, because look, here's the other thing too. The offensive lines that we're talking about didn't have 4 starters coming back, 4 good starters, like, a first, 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, and a recent free agent signing. But we only need the one piece. Now, the argument there is like you said, if this team just decides, this organization says, look, we have an opportunity here. If Membo's on the board, we have an opportunity here to finish the most important position group on the out, right? It's like, it's not debatable. The team, you could have any quarterback in the world. If they don't have an offensive line in front of them, there's no running game to speak of, number one. So there's no relief there. And all the pass catchers, you can have fucking Devontae Adams, AJ Brown. You can have all these guys. If your quarterback has 1.2 seconds to throw the ball, ain't nothing happening.
Nothing.
You know what I mean? So if they just decide, we're putting this to bed, we have a young offensive line. We got AVT. We got Joe Tippmann. The AVT's in year 5. Tippmann's going into year 3. Fashanu's going into year 2. And Simpson's a little older. But we have the ability now to have our offensive line, a young offensive line. They're going in, 4 of them are going into their second year playing together. To have this unit together for our contract that we've signed, our entire tenure, barring success and extensions. Our offensive line is done. There's logic there. At the same time, the wide receiver drop off after you could say the second round, right?
Yeah.
Is significant. I mean, it is at offensive tackle as well. So there's that. But if you don't get a pass catcher in that, I'll say first 2 rounds, but I would argue pick 7. If you don't get a receiver, your ability to get somebody that's going to be truly a viable number 2 that can come in and contribute from the rip is going to be diminished. There's lots of guys that you can have at, your wide receiver 4, even wide receiver 3. There's a lot of slot guys you can kind of find, but it's really going to be difficult to do that. It's a 50-50 ball at best.
And I agree with you.
I think and you can get the Ursaries, the Trapillos of the Simmons. I don't know. Simmons will be a first round pick, I think. But it's really going to be more difficult, in my opinion, to get that wide receiver, especially because wide receiver contracts are blowing up. So the idea of grabbing one, especially when you that first round, when you can get the 5th-year option on them, that carries weight, man. Because when signing one in free agency, getting these guys it's next to quarterback level.
Yep.
$30+ fucking million to get a legitimate receiver in here. That motivates teams to accelerate that. If you're looking at 2 needs, line and pass catcher, and it could be tight end, especially in this draft. But like getting a Ty Warren, and a Buka, a Golden, a McMillan, or a Burden, if you're looking for somebody like that. Really, I don't know, man. I think that it carries. It carries even more weight. So I'm not convinced that their record carries over into here because of the needs of those teams at the top. Excuse me.
But I love that you brought this up, because that argument that you just made totally holds water. But do you know who was in an even worse situation in the pass catching room, and they didn't invest in it until they were ready to? The Detroit Lions in 2021, when they went and they got Penei Sewell. They didn't have a pass catcher on the roster. And in that draft class.
Right, but can we stop there for a second? Can we just stop and say Membo is not the prospect Sewell was?
No, he's not. But
so there's a different story there. We're talking about Joe Alt. You know what I mean? Like Penei Sewell was considered a can't miss prospect. That is not Membu. As good as he's a good prospect, but they're not the same.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
No.
So there's that too.
Totally. But can we also not pretend that, and as much as I love him, Tet McMillan is not Devontae Smith?
Fair.
He's not Jalen Waddle?
Well, and if you look at that too, you look at that first, the top 10 of
he's not Rashad Bateman, or
look at the 21 draft, right? That I know you're looking at right now.
I'm staring at it. These are the wide receivers,
so you look at that. You see all the Pro Bowlers. There's only three guys in the top 10 that didn't make the Pro Bowl. And it's really kind of, and obviously one of them is Zach Wilson,
Yeah.
And then you get to 14. There's our other pick that we traded 2/3 to move up for. He's bookended by guys that made the it's Micah Parsons, Rashawn Slater.
Yep.
Another offensive tackle.
And Mac Jones right after that.
And Mac Jones. They're bookended by Pro Bowls, and Elijah Vera-Tucker sitting in the middle there with no Pro Bowls. Where it's just an interesting thing to observe.
But I think the point comes back to that was a much better wide receiver class, and they still went the offensive tackle. This is not as good, but this is, I think you said it earlier, and I think that you have to bring it back to this is this is one of the worst draft classes in a long time in terms of top end talent and all of those things. So I'm not going to sit here and argue that Membu or Campbell is anywhere near the levels of Penei Sewell or Rashawn Slater or even Elijah Vera-Tucker, because I don't think they're as good as any of those guys. But neither is Tet McMillan or Luther Burden or anybody that you would consider a wide receiver. I don't necessarily think that Warren is as good as the tight ends last year, and it's just that's more an impact.
Only the one. He's only not as good as the one, but he's also
but you're talking about picking him at 7.
I hear you.
That's the
I
point.
Hear that. I do.
And
I hear that.
And that's the conversation that you have to have. And so I think that when you look at just, again, historically what these teams have done, I think prioritizing the trenches is what we've seen both of these guys do at the previous teams that they were at. And a tight end that can block, which is what Warren is worth his weight in gold. Absolutely. Especially with his pass catching ability. It's worth its weight in gold. But being able to stand in the pocket and have a cup of tea and call your mom and ask her how she's doing, and then also, tie your shoes, call your girlfriend, tell her what's up. Like, all of those, like, having time in the backfield cures all quarterback ailments. And I think that if you're trying to win, I don't think it matters how many pass catchers you have if the quarterback can't find them because he's getting pressure.
No, I agree. I do. I agree. But again, we're just talking, totally, two angles.
It's a conversation.
To the same thing. But it's like, I don't know. I think you have to look at what the draft is offering. And, the first round pick is not on an island, right? It's not independent of the rest of the draft. You have to look at the rest of the draft and what you're able to do and accomplish in the second and third round, particularly. And that should have some bearing on your selection. If you have a Membo, a Warren, and let's say a Tet McMillan on that same tier, there's no reason to believe that they are necessarily on the Jets board that way. But let's just, for the sake of argument, say that that's what it is. If you're looking at a Warren, a Membu, and a Tet McMillan on the same tier, and you're sitting there at 7 and they're all there, you got to factor in the other variables. One is, what you're able to do, what the prospects at each position looks like in the second round.
What is going to probably be on the board at 42? That's the question that you need to ask. That's why I think it also comes back to Membu being the pick, because I think that if you go to, this is a really, really deep tight end class.
It is.
Right? So, and I think the best way to describe it is, while I think that Tyler Warren is tight end 1, I don't think the gap between, let's say, Tyler Warren at 7 is as big of it. Like, let's say Tyler Warren at 7 to, what's our third round pick? Do you know the number off the top of your head?
73, I think it is.
73. At 73 or even at 42, you're going to be able to walk away with Elijah Arroyo, Mason Taylor, Terrence Ferguson, Harold Fannin Jr., and Gunnar Helm. Those are probably going to be the names in that conversation. I don't think that the gap from Tyler Warren to, let's say, Harold Fannin or Gunnar Helm, whichever one you have ranked the worst of those, is as big of a gap as, let's say, in the conversation in the wide receivers. The same thing. I don't think the gap between Tet McMillan and a guy that you could get in the third round, like Jalen Royals or Trey Harris or Jaden Higgins, if you want to go at 42, is as big as the fall off at offensive tackle. That, to me, like, if you're legit, you want a right tackle or a left tackle or whatever it is, the conversation that you're going to have, I think the fall off really comes in the second round, because, like, I know a lot of people are like big fans of Ozzie Trapillo and all of that stuff. And I get it. I don't think he's there in our for the third round pick.
I do. I think that's right in the pocket where he goes. But also,
and so, but like, again, and I think the fall off is much greater. I think the gap from Membo Campbell to Jackson, Trapillo, Ursary, even Connerly, if he falls and gets to you in the second, I think that gap is bigger than the gap from Warren to Arroyo or Tet McMillan to Trey, to Jaden Higgins or something along those lines, if that's the way that you want to go. Well,
Jake has a great point too. We were actually talking about this on the Talking Jets panel last night with Ryan and Matt, is that when you look at, again, I think one of the things that Glenn is talking about is building the team around the player's strengths that he has, which is just so damn refreshing, because clearly Robert Saleh wasn't able to do that. He needed a very specific brand of player at each position. It's just one of those things. It's very silly. Over time, of course, as you're drafting and free agent signing and everything, of course, you're going to bring in players that fit what you want. But when you arrive at a team, you have, and then injuries come in too. These players, it's like when Aaron Rodgers went down, what we learned was that they did not have a plan B.
Nope.
They were all in. So, and that included Joe Douglas. You saw how long it took us to sign a viable backup. With Zach Wilson was catapulted in, we already knew what he was and fucking, anything. And, anyway, looking at the players and their strength, Justin Fields loves the tight ends, loves them, right? That's what he does. Jake's comment, he said that the guy who was talking about said Justin Fields is essentially a 2-read quarterback. What does that mean? That a lot of the times that means that he's looking for his primary target. He's covered. He's going to look to his safety valves, right? Whether that be the running back, the slot, or the tight end, right? Which is why you see him throwing to the tight end. So if you're looking at that and you're really building around this guy and you really are taking this swing, like, look, we know the 26 draft class is going to be quarterback rich, or at least it's projected to be. That's great. But we are going to try to not to have to do that, to depend on that. We're going to try. We have a 25-year-old quarterback here that's super athletic with a rocket arm, and he happens to have 4 years of NFL experience. And although maybe not as much as you'd like to see, does have incremental progress over the last couple of years. So great. You're going to build around him. You're going to try to support him and make this fucking thing work. Great. What does that call for? It calls for a tight end, and it calls for a tight end that you are confident can not only assist and be a viable asset in the blocking game, but also can be a viable target and give you the impact necessary in the passing game. So that's where that stuff kind of comes in too, man.
I was trying to avoid this point because I didn't want to keep being the guy who hates the Justin Fields signing. I very much dislike it, but I think that this comes back to the point. I think that this is a double-edged sword here.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is a great point that you're making, but also go look at the rosters in Chicago. They didn't have running backs as good as Breece Hall. And so I think that, especially because I think calling him a 2-read quarterback is a bit generous. He's a 1-read and run kind of a guy.
Well,
if that one,
I'll give 2 reads. That's what I didn't like about him coming out of Ohio State, the 1-read run thing. But I think he has shed that.
I don't think he has. But again, I don't want to dwell on that.
We're not. That's I don't want to keep being the.
I get it. I hate, but like, if that's the case, if it's a 2-read and run quarterback, I would much, much rather those 2 reads be Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall with a solid right tackle than it be Garrett Wilson, Tyler Warren with a leaky right tackle.
Fair.
Because we don't have a right tackle right now. You cannot rely on Okorafor, and you cannot, but like, as much as I love him as a player, you cannot rely on Max Mitchell stepping up, and you cannot rely on, and like I said, I think the gap from a guy like like a Membu to a Trapio or even an Ursary in the second round is much bigger than that. And like, we've seen it all the time where tight ends very rarely, even first round tight ends, very rarely come in and dominate at a level that contributes right away. Cole Kmet, it took a little while, and he was a second-round pick. Sam Laporta was a second-round pick.
McBride. I mean, there's lots of examples otherwise.
There's a tons of those, and I think there's a lot of examples of like first-round tight ends, and you could do that both ways. It's a double-edged sword. You can go, oh yeah, but like Kyle Pitts kind of worked. He just couldn't block, but he had a bunch of receiving yards. It's a weird thing because like pre-Justin Fields, I was pounding the table for Ted McMillan. In a pre-Justin Fields world, I was pounding the table for that. I loved Ted McMillan, a big contested catch guy who can do like, dude, I loved the idea of that. But you have to adjust your plan once you went and got Justin Fields. And in my opinion, if you're actually trying to win games with Justin Fields, it is all about being really, really good in the run game, which drafting a tackle high is going to obviously like help improve and do that well, but also giving him time in the pocket because we know he can't process defense as well. He is a one read and run. And if he can stare down Garrett Wilson for 3 seconds, Garrett Wilson's gonna get open. Yeah. I don't care who your DB is, as long as your DB isn't named Sauce Gardner, Patrick Surtain, and honestly, that's it. As long as it's not one of those two guys, maybe Jalen Ramsey, he's going to get open.
I agree.
He's going to get open. And the fun fact, guys, I don't know if you know this, but one of those guys that I listed, he plays for us. And the other one, we don't play this year for the first time in forever. So we know that Elijah Vera Tucker's not going to get hurt because we're not going to go to Mile High. So that to me.
Hey, knock on some fucking wood. How dare Tigo?
Whoa, we're not playing a Mile High.
I don't care. You're saying that he's not going to get hurt. I can't do it.
I said he's not going to get hurt at Mile High. There's very, very clear difference.
Yeah. All right, listen, let's get to Sam Aiken's comment here. He says, I think we should trade down.
Same.
Ursary more than handled Abdul Carter. Shouldn't we be trying to get more contributors? I'm still a fan of the trade down. Especially when there is a realistic world. There is a world, guys, where Membu, Tet, and Warren are gone before we pick. Now it's a long shot that all three of those are gone, but the truth is, guys, is that this is not your average draft class. It's different. It's not that obvious. Top 10 is not really there. I think the top 5 maybe. Yeah. Right? You got Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, the 2 quarterbacks. And one of the tackles, maybe, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It could be Will Johnson, that cornerback. It could,
I think there's 3 players worth coming up for in this draft class, and all of them are going to be gone. It's Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Cam Ward. No one else is trading up for any of these other guys, in my opinion. So
if Shedeur Sanders slips, which I'll tell you, the recent batch of mocks, again, you got to take it all with a grain of salt because they've been mocked. That's why I tell everybody, like with these early mocks, they're making mocks before the end of the season. By the time we get here, when we should really be looking at stuff, they're not anymore. They're just, they can't keep putting out the same shit.
How many early mocks had Abdul Carter being there at 11 when we were picking 11? Do you remember that?
Yep.
Now he's going to go top 3. Now he's going to be the first not Travis Hunter.
Well, they say him and Travis Hunter are getting thrown into, number 1 overall pick conversations,
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so. I still don't think that happens. But
they go Cam Ward. Has to be, right?
Look, if the Titans are not taking Cam Ward, then you trade, dude. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, that's my thoughts on the matter.
Sell that
pick. Slide back with the Giants. You call the Giants and go, dude.
The Raiders.
Adding or the Raiders, but you call them and you say, dude, like the Giants, think about Cam Ward sitting for a minute behind Russell Wilson, and you got Jameis Winston, great guy to be around. Yeah, I mean, talk about a better quarterback, and you got Kafka and Brian Dable. Like now, come on up.
With Russell, with no immediate need to start because
that's
Russell
what I mean.
Wilson's
that's what I'm
there,
saying.
So you got time.
It's a perfect scenario.
Buys them some time because they could do 10 games of Russell Wilson. You could sell Mara on that. Like, hey, we're not going to put this kid in. We're going to do him right. Look what happened when you guys rushed in Danny Dimes and all of those things. We're going to do this right. We need time. Boom, you just extended your job an extra year or 2.
That's right.
Just by doing it. And so no, I'm totally with you. And like you said, GreenBean, I think the perfect situation here is, and I think everybody in the chat agrees, trade down is priority number 1. If you can trade back at 7, I don't care who's on the board. Like, honestly, realistic, right? Because if you're going to trade back if Abdul Carter's there, Abdul Carter's not going to be there at 7. Can we have a realistic conversation about this?
Yeah.
There's not a player at 7 that I'm so desperately in love with that's I would trade back. I would trade back.
Yeah. And when you look at
really far, if we're being honest,
right? When you look at a big,
but no one is going to trade up. Who's going to come up for one of these guys? Who's trading up for Tet McMillan? Who's trading up for Mason Graham? Who's trading up for Ashton Genty? That's the problem with this class is that there isn't a sexy pick that you come up to go and get. And that's the problem. You can
and let's take a look. I'm just going to put up a big board, right? So this, big boards vary, of course.
Absolutely.
But just to give you an idea, so here's a big board for you guys. All right, let me make it a little bit bigger for you. So, man, I'm laggy. Am I lagging on YouTube? I am. Why don't you tell me? You got to tell me.
Oh no, I thought you meant like your shared screen. No, you're fine.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah. You as GreenBean is fine. The web page is a little laggy.
Okay. All right. Good. So you look at this, right? Let me get over to the page here. Where am I? Yeah, and this page in particular is giving me shit. I might go to another one, but look, you got Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. You want to share? This is Draft Tech. Just go to the Draft Tech big board. Drafttech.com, 2 T's, Draft Tech.
I'm already on PFF. I just made it slim and
fuck PFF. I'm so sick of them. Just put up Draft Tech. Or Draft Buzz, or Tankathon, or anybody but PFF. I'm so sick of PFF. All right, I'll get this off because I'm like, it's like constantly thinking, and it's gonna log me up. While you're doing that, I'll bring up JJ Hamsa's super chat. Thanks, buddy. He says Fields' football IQ registers as retarded. Oh, okay. Worst fourth quarter stat for any quarterback with over 20 starts. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's debating what we've seen from Justin Fields. And again, I don't know if there's not too many people that would really say they're Justin Fields guys. It's definitely not me. I'm not a Justin Fields guy. I like the swing with where our team is right now. I'm not a Justin Fields guy, but I do see more hope in it than guys like yourself, JJ, and Tigo. You gotta do it the right way. Like, you gotta also factor in. It's like when you look at quarterbacks like Zach or Sam or all these guys that go to these organizations that are notoriously shitty at developing quarterbacks, and they just, they're usually at the top, and they bring in these guys and they're there for a couple years and they suck and they move on. And Chicago's in that mix, Mm-hmm. So Justin Fields has had numerous coaches, numerous offensive coordinators, numerous teams. So again, it's just one of those things where if we have an organization that likes him and they bring him in and go, dude, we have a plan for this guy. We're going to build around his strengths. It's got a chance. And that's all I'm saying. All right. So take a look. Want to speak to mine? Well, take a look at the big board here. So when you look at these players, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Cam Ward, they're gone right now. You see Shedeur Sanders. He's listed as the 6th overall player on their board, but he's also got positional value, which is quarterback. So I don't see him being there at 7. If he is, I am working my phones, right?
I think he is.
You think he's there at 7?
I think he falls out of the top 10.
Possible, but I'm trying to make.
Oh, I agree.
Because so you got Mason Graham, you got Ashton Genty, and poor Genty. I mean, he might go, but he's got that other side of positional value, where this happens to be a deep running back class, right? There a lot of them are, but this one's particularly strong. And the position is, the people look at it like, I don't need to use a top pick, especially the teams that are up there. Mm-hmm. They have big needs, and you can get a running back later, right? So
Scatterboo.
Then you got Tyler Warren, Membu, McMillan, Will Campbell, Eamon Worry, another victim of positional value. But you look at all those guys. Who's trading up going to give you next year's first or their second round pick this year for any of those guys? It doesn't feel it, right? It doesn't have that. Now, again, when you look at last year's draft, we like this comparison. When you look at Joe Alt, Marvin Harrison Jr., Romo Dunze, all these guys, there were so many guys,
generational talents.
I mean, it was crazy deep last year. The blue chip potency of last year's draft was through the roof. Guys, we saw 9 offensive tackles taken in a 32-pick first round. 9 of those picks were offensive tackles. That's absurd.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at how many receivers were taken in last year's draft in the first round. Let me see, 2024. So your point,
it was Harrison, Neighbors, Rome.
Right, Neighbors. That's the guy I was forgetting.
Harrison, Neighbors, Rome.
Let's see. I'm going to do it. So
the criminal that went to Kansas City.
Right, 1, 2. So you got this. Harrison, Malik Neighbors. That's 1, 2. Rome Odunze, 3.
He's in the first round.
Yeah. So you had 3 wide receivers taken in the top 10, 2 offensive tackles taken in the top 10, and 1, 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks. The whole top 10 was 3 positions last year.
Yep.
Think about that, right? So wait, 1, 2, 3. Then we waited.
Brock Bowers was the first not offensive tackle, wide receiver, quarterback taken. Like
crazy. Right,
because was Leatu the first defensive player taken at 15?
Well, think about this too, because look at this. We said the entire top 10 was 3 positions. Then you get out of the top 10, the next picks are quarterback, offensive tackle, quarterback. So the first 13 picks were 3 positions. Crazy. That's absurdity. 5 quarterbacks and 3 offensive tackles. Or wait, 1, 2, 3 offensive tackles and 5 quarterbacks taken in the first 13 picks. It's a totally different draft. We got defensive tackles, cornerbacks, obviously quarterbacks, wide receivers, but tight ends. It's just a whole different deal. So how many wide receivers were there? So
we're at 3
at 1,
9.
2, 3. The next
4.
one is Brian Thomas.
Yep.
So that's 4.
I wanted Brian
Xavier
Thomas.
Worthy, 5.
Yep.
And then we capped the first with a couple of receivers. Ricky Pearsall, 6. And Xavier Legette.
And the
7.
first 2 picks in the second round pick are wide receivers.
Right. And then, then it starts that day 2 is Keon Coleman, Ladd McConkey. So 2 wide receivers right there. But 7 wide receivers and 9 offensive tackles in the first round last year. We're not seeing that this year.
But my thing is this, GreenBean is, why not? Because I get it, a lot of you, but you just mentioned it a while ago. Wide receiver contracts are getting insane. So you got to grab guys to get this 5th-year option.
That's my point.
But what I'm saying is the same thing goes for the offensive tackle. There were 9 offensive tackles taken in the first round. We've seen what was the first round pick that the Patriots did a couple years ago that was crazy?
Cole
Strange. They were talking about him as a 3rd round pick. Walker, was it Walker Little? No, it was Alex. Who the Raiders took him in the Elijah Vera Tucker draft. Leatherwood. It was Alex Leatherwood. Took him through. We're starting to see that this positional value is overtaking prospect grades entirely. Brian Branch had no business being a 2nd round pick. No business being a 2nd round pick. And I made a bet with the late and not late. He's not dead. Jesus Christ. I take that back. Knock on wood. He's awesome. Buffalo Jet fan. I said, you owe me a burrito because I'm telling you Brian Branch isn't going in the first. And I won that bet. And I had a 1st round grade on Brian Branch. But again, positional value. How far, if we're going to legitimately have this conversation, how far are Malachi Starks and Emin Worry going to fall because they're safeties? They should be top 10 picks, probably. Maybe not Emin Worry. I have Starks with a higher grade. But they should be Starks should be a top 10 pick. Does he go in the top 15? Does he go in the top 20? Probably not because he's a safety. Edges, offensive tackles, wide receivers, quarterbacks are all flying up boards for no reason. Do you remember in the Kenny to Tiny Hands Pickett year. Right before the draft started, there was all that buzz that Malik, what was his name? Out of Liberty, the quarterback, went to the Titans.
Malik Willis.
Malik Willis was going to go number 1 to Detroit. It was going to go Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Sam Howell as the first 3 picks. And like it.
Yeah, remember that? Wait, hold on.
It's just, we have no idea what's going to happen, but trends do point that wide receivers are going to fly off the board early. Offensive tackles are going to fly off the board early. And you got to capitalize on that. Either way, if you go Ted McMillan or Membu, whichever one, I'm cool with. I'm just saying you got to capitalize on it.
All right, hold on. Let's do these super chats. I didn't realize it was already 9 o'clock here. Hennessy Heisman checking in says, from the mocks we have done, what's your favorite besides the trade down? I think we all agree that's number 1, but I like Warren, offensive tackle, wide receiver, or offensive tackle, wide receiver, tight end. So he's talking about that first 3 picks. Well, I'm a big fan of the trade back too. You know, I really am, because I like in the second round, like if you could get, Dallas's or, whoever, somebody like that, if you can squeeze out their second round pick, if you get to Atlanta or, 15, 16, that area, and get that second round pick, I like who we're going to get. Because Abuka's going to be there. Like, truth is, Abuka's my wide receiver 1 in this. Yeah, I'm liking him more and more and more. And I like the Ohio State thing. That wouldn't move my needle, necessarily, but I like it. It's just a little something, little sugar on top, it's a cherry, Mm-hmm. But I gotta say, like, so for me, without a trade down, if we went like Ty Warren, I think I'm in that Ty Warren camp. If we went Ty Warren, Jaden Higgins, Trapillo or Ursary, if they're there in the third, maybe Millam, one of those guys in the third, I'd be really happy with that. But at the same time, I got to tell you, going Membu, Loveland, I gotta think about what wide receivers would be there. But like, even I know it'd be a little bit of a reach, but like a Nick Nash or Thornton or a Besh in the third, I'd be okay with that too. So I don't know. I think my favorite would be tight end, wide receiver, tackle. That's what I think. I think that would work out the best. What's yours? In a perfect world, like, I don't think Loveland makes it out of the first round. I have a not so secret. I'm just as high on
Loveland.
Yeah, I agree. There's a good chance.
I have him really close to Tyler Warren in my grades. I really, really like Colston Loveland.
What was it? The 30 catches?
It wasn't anything about the stats.
Like, I know. I'm playing. He's in Michigan.
Watching the tape, like he pops. This besides the point. It's not a Loveland, but honestly, the way that I look at it is, give me offensive tackle in the first, whether that's Membu, Campbell, like whatever cup of tea the staff decides that they want to go. I would lean Membu. Give me Jaden Higgins at 42, because that's where I would lean, and give me one of, if he's there, maybe not, but like give me one of like Arroyo, Taylor, Ferguson, Fannin, Helm in that range in the third. I think that gives you the best of this class. I think you get the best offensive tackle maybe in this class. You get a really, really damn good X in this, that's from this class. And then you get yourself a workable tight end, and you hope that you can find in the third, your Sam Laporta, your Cole Kmet, your thing. Noah Fant was a second round pick, or was he a first round pick? I think it was a second round pick.
I think he was a first, actually.
Was he a first?
I
Regardless.
So.
If you can find that guy in that second or the third round, that would be ideal. I would love a trade back, but I don't think that he's a first round pick.
Yep, first
standing there with a jersey. Yeah. Yep. Pick 20, according to your graphic there. I'd be cool with that. And I think that's where I lead: offensive tackle, wide receiver, tight end. I think just beef it up in the beefiest way possible. You could convince me, depending on you could convince me the other way around. I think offensive tackle is what I want in the first, and I'm cool with that. And I'd be okay with a year of your best wide receiver being Garrett Wilson, and then just a bunch of guys that can do their jobs in a rotating role. And I think we did some good moves there. And so you could convince me, no, go offensive tackle in the first and then go tight end in the second with Elijah Arroyo or Colston Loveland if he's there.
Yeah, so there you go. But I am a fan of the trade back, because if we slide back, the guys,
so much. It opens up everything.
And the guys at 12 to the guys at 12 to 18 kind of, dude, they're the same to me.
Yeah.
It's the same level of talent to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I look, and not for nothing, I know it's sacrilege, but I wouldn't be terribly disappointed if the Jets ended up, look, if we slide back, we get a second and maybe some change if you go back to 18 or something like that, and you end up with a Jihad Campbell or Malachi Starks or so. I'm you know what I mean? Just as examples, I'm not as disappointed as a lot of other folks would be with that.
And it totally shifts everything, because now if you have an extra second round pick, a whole slew of prospects that didn't exist for us now do in that second round, because now you can go the wide receiver and the safety. Now you can go, wide receiver and the tight end, or you can go if you go wide receiver in the first, let's say Matthew Golden, that's you trade back and you get Matthew Golden. I love Matthew Golden. I think he's awesome. If you trade back, and then in the second you go and you get yourself, your tackle, whether it's, Trapio or Ursary, and the wide receiver and the tight end in Arroyo, that's a great. And now the third round opens up, because now you get a third round linebacker. The trade back is the perfect situation. Just tell me who is coming up and for who.
Yeah.
I think we've got to bang our tables. If you know anybody in Indianapolis, you call them, you make the phone calls, and you tell them that Tyler Warren is the next best thing. He is the reincarnation of Gronkowski and Hernandez before he became a criminal. And I can't think of any other tight ends. Why am I blanking on tight end? I can see all their faces. Insert the Mount Rushmore of tight ends. He's the next incarnation of all four of them. They need to give us their second round pick so that they can take him.
Yeah, I see. I struggle too. You know what I mean? With thinking that the trade down is look, now if Shedeur Sanders is there, or one of these other guys happens to slide, weird shit happens every year. There are guys that just pop through. I'm working my phones. I would be delighted.
Totally.
JJ Hamza checking in. If Graham is there at 7, I take him. I really like that player. I just can't. I know we did too much work on the defensive line.
Brought over 900 pounds of just interior defensive linemen.
Yeah, I don't see it either, man.
And he comps too similarly to Quinnen Williams. I love Mason Graham. He's a stud, but you would take his teammate over Graham.
Now, if they decided that they're not, they're looking to trade Quinnen Williams or something, who knows what they're
different conversation.
Yeah, but I don't know. While we're wrapping this up, I just want to put this picture up there and let everybody think about it. Just remind everybody of what's up out there. This is what's up. This is the guy for the mid rounds. This is the guy, everybody. Keep your eyes on this guy right here. Let's see what else we got in here. We got Jake checking in. Let's be honest. We all know Leatherwood. We all knew Leatherwood was bad. Dude, he was, I mean, I liked him later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Same with Cole Strange. I liked Cole Strange in the third.
I like Cole Strange plenty. But yeah, that's the thing. Now, look, and this is what they do. This is what these teams do. All these teams think they're the smartest guy in the room, right? It's like what the Jets did with Will McDonald. They were in a panic that somebody was going to take him. Mike McCagnon did the same thing with Hackenberg. He was convinced that somebody was going to trade up and jump him for Hackenberg. Nobody was even thinking about him until the fucking end of the draft, if they had him on their draft board at all. and McCagnon's in a he's got cold sweats in the second round. So, you see it all the time, but like, if this is where, like, in the same round anyway, if you just everything in your evaluations and, everything that you got, you're like, this is the guy, and you're at pick 10 and he's rated by everybody else as a late first, early second, and you're at 10 and that's the guy. It's a reach, you get him anyway.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about a fucking 3-round reach, you're an idiot. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Even if he ends up playing well, because you could have got him later. And that's the thing. It's not always as simple as, well, look, he's good. We got him in the first. Well, who cares? Well, you could have got him and him. That's who cares. And that's what the great teams do. And the shitty teams like the Jets historically don't. Although I thought Joe Douglas did a pretty damn good job squeezing value out of the draft. But he also has a lot of clams, man. A lot of clams, Tigo. Everybody stare at that picture.
I think, look, I'm totally on board with Thornton. Thornton, right? That's his last name. Why am I blanking? It is Thornton.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. He's a stud. Again, but like, it's just like, we've seen that model work before in the NFL. If you find a guy who can do like 3 things exceptionally well, just ask him to do those 3 things in a limited role as he learns the rest of the game. Like it works. Is it Thornton? Whatever.
Yeah, Thornton.
But like,
I love him, dude. That's what.
And again, mid-round wide receiver. You can get him.
Yeah,
and that to me is the point. We're not looking for number 1.
But he's not going to be a number 2. He's not. Maybe he is, but he's not going to be in the first couple years.
That's fine. That's fine. We have a number 1. If we can just get a bunch of number 3s, I'm cool with that. Because again, that follows kind of a similar model of what Detroit did. They didn't have a number 1 wide receiver. They didn't know that Amon-Ra St. Brown, who they took in the 4th round, was going to be as good as he was. They waited. In the very next year, they took J-Mo. And they should have known that he was going to be a gambling addict. But besides the point, they have Amon-Ra St. Brown. And he's really freaking good.
Yeah. All right, everybody.
One more super chat.
All right.
2 more super chat. 3.
Yeah, these guys, they don't know when to do it. They don't want us to go away. Jake coming back in. Thank you, Jake. He says sliding back this year at 7 is the best thing we can do. It's a depth draft and everything we need. Well, we agree. I think Tigo and I both agree. I know Dom sees it the same way, and Ryan and Matt, we all see it the same way. The problem is most likely other GMs see it the same way too. So sacrificing, the ability to gain some of that depth, who's worth losing that ability to come get? Which player are they willing to sacrifice their second this year or their second next year or their first next year? Who's willing to do that? That's the thing. Like, the thing, Jake, it takes 2 to tango, buddy. So I'm a big fan of the trade. That's why I'm telling you, if Shedeur Sanders slips, all right?
Call Pittsburgh immediately.
Call Pittsburgh. That's one.
Call Pittsburgh.
Who else we got?
Pittsburgh and New Orleans, and you start a bidding war between the both of them. Who wants Shedeur?
Yeah, right. Hold on. Let me see.
They're about to sign a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers, 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, who's going to be 32 by the time they make it to the playoffs, because it's the Steelers, and of course they're going to the playoffs.
So look at who we got here. So who needs a quarterback? Carolina doesn't. Bryce Young kind of all of a sudden there. Everybody thinks he's the guy. He looked, good for him. The Saints committed to Carr. Chicago's got their dude, right? Caleb. San Francisco's interesting, but Brock Purdy's their guy. Dallas. What about Dallas?
Dallas they're stuck with Dak. I don't think they can get out from under Dak.
But they're not beyond. Jerry Jones is a crazy fella, and he might be planning for next year. Get him in here. Get him in Brian Schottenheimer's offense for a year. Miami, they got who knows, but they got Tua. They got Tua and Zach. Think about that. The Dolphins 3 straight Jets
Years.
failed backup quarterbacks. Weird.
Chat makes a good point. The Colts don't seem totally committed to Anthony Richardson.
They don't. He really turned some people off last year.
Pulling
The
himself in the game.
Falcons.
Arizona don't seem totally bought in with Kyler
The Falcons
Murray.
got Penix. The Arizona, they might not be bought in, but Kyler Murray is, I don't know, but potentially. The Bengals obviously are locked down. Seattle, who's Seattle's quarterback? They got Sam Darnold. Tampa Bay's got Baker. Denver's got Bo. Pittsburgh's really the most viable.
The one, man. You call Pittsburgh.
Dion would be delighted if he went up there with Tomlin and the great organization run by the Rooneys up there in Pittsburgh. That's no problem with that one.
The team. You call Pittsburgh 2 firsts, this year's 2nd, and next year's 3rd for 7.
Right. So Green Bay's got Love. Minnesota's got McCarthy. Houston's got what's his name? What's his name again? I'm Stroud, right? Thank you. Rams got Stafford. Baltimore's got Lamar. Detroit's got Goff. Washington's got Jaden. Buffalo's got whatever that guy is. Mahomes and her. Yeah, I mean, it's really the Steelers. Really.
The Steelers.
You never know, right? There's some X factors there, but it's really the Steelers. So
you brought up the Cowboys, and then Swamp Ranger makes a good point where it's just like they hired Shoddy. They're not going to give him more than a year. He's going to be a one and done. They're going to fire him next year. If the Cowboys are making a play for Shador to then bring in Dion in 2026, post Dak, that might be a thing.
That might be a thing.
Swamp Ranger is making some sense. Making some
good Swamp Ranger. All right, Swamp Ranger. Our buddy Hennessy checking in says, not going to lie, Warren and Higgins would be fire. And that's to think about this. If you come out of this offseason, right, and you got Justin Fields, you got some lower rung wide receivers, right? You got some depth pieces in Myers and Okafor for the offensive line. I think they bring in, they secured Xavier Newman.
Mm-hmm.
Okafor. So that's how I say it, and that's how I'm going to say it, and that's that. So you still got Brees, you still got Braylon, you still got Isaiah Davis. Sounds like Aaron Glenn loves him. He said we got physical, violent running backs, and we're going to use them that way. Come on. We're going to use them that way. I fucking love it, dude.
Same.
You know what I mean, dude? We got big physical running backs.
Run them between. Make a linebacker's life hell.
That's right. We're going to
make them feel that hit next Thursday.
That's right. Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, they want to hit somebody. So guess what we're going to let them do? Hit somebody. That we're going to use them the way they want to run.
Not too many people are going to remember this, but I'm thinking like there was a couple years ago. It was a Tennessee versus I think it was Tennessee. It was Tennessee versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it was Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football. And it was King Henry right up the gut versus Bob the Pain Train Spillane. And I think like Spillane broke his collarbone, I believe, because it was just a collision of two massive humans. And he was done for the season. And that's what and it wasn't a dirty hit. It wasn't nothing. He just stood in the gap and said, come and hit me. And freaking King Henry did hard. And it ruined his day. We have the guys to do it. So do it. Yeah. I think the problem with this comment, Hennessy, because I would totally agree with you.
But again, so to my point, though, and then you come out of the draft in the first 3 rounds. So you did all that work. We got some defensive linemen. You got your cornerback, got your free safety. And we come out of the top 3 rounds with Tyler Warren, Jaden Higgins, and Ozzie Trapillo. You know what I mean? Like,
I would love that situation, but the problem is, here's the problem.
31 other teams? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not even 31 other teams. Let's just say you get those picks. It doesn't matter because we know Justin Fields not going to see him open. Like, that's just it. And I think more likely Trapillo is going to stumble out of the blocks versus a guy like Membo. That's the problem. Look, if it was still Aaron Rodgers as quarterback, freaking if it was Kirk Cousins at quarterback, sign me up. Tyler Warren, Jaden Higgins, like let's go do it. But the problem is we know we have a one read. Like those are two names right there. He's not going to read. He can only see one of them. Can't see both.
Yeah.
So,
but anyway,
can't process a defense to save his life.
All right. Let's get to Swamp Rangers. Super chat here. He said, did I skip one? No. Okay. So he says, I can't stand watching shit O-line play anymore. We had a liability at left tackle last year, and he got Rodgers killed. I can't do another third, fourth round swing on offensive tackle. I hear that. Genuinely, I do. I hear you. I just don't think that you can discount the look, not to say Membo's not better, right, than Ursary or Ozzy, some of these guys we talk about, Matt Millam and some other guys. But that doesn't mean, like, dude, don't forget, like, the Jets, we're not really, there's been no development here. There's been nothing here. Like even guys like Lake and Tomlinson, Dwayne Brown, Tyron Smith, they come here and regress. So there's nothing to say really, because it's standard operating procedure to get your tackles and guards in the 3rd to 6th round. It happens constantly around the league. As a matter of fact,
every other team does it.
Every other team, and the Jets have done it historically over the, in the past. But it's like, a lot of the guys that we want to sign in free agency, we're like, oh, we got to get this guy, blah, blah, blah. Dude, they're 4th round picks. You know what I mean? So it doesn't, I hear you, definitely. And your point is very solid, and I agree. But that doesn't mean that your offensive tackle in the 3rd round, or the 2nd round for that matter, if they, whatever, can't end up being that for you in the same way that your guy in the 1st would. Jake checking back, and he says, no or Steelers, I think, if he drops. Oh, New Orleans or Steelers. Well, New Orleans committed to Carr, but is that more than this year? I think it is.
Yeah, they can get out from under him next year.
Okay. So maybe.
No, I'm saying it's New Orleans or Steelers. They're the ones that you got to. In a perfect world, it's the Steelers because they would have to give up more because the Saints are at 9, I believe. So they are like, it maybe only be like a 3rd round pick. And I want more than that if I'm going to like trade back. Like if it's just New Orleans, I would take that every day of the week. But
yeah, and look
if
at
you
the guys,
can get the Steelers involved, get them involved.
Yeah, look, and look at the guys like in that 21 range. What you're looking at are the Nicky Manwaris, the Matthew Goldens, the Ibukas, the Justin Simmonses of the world. Like, dude, you're fine. You're fine taking your guy. Colston Loveland will likely. That's I think he's going to be a 1st round pick too, Tigo. But I'm not so sure he doesn't make it to 21. I think you got a good
totally
shot.
Realistic.
Yeah. So who else? I mean, got Mike Green, in that area, Kenneth Grant, if you are going to go defensive, there's a lot of really good players there. Gray Zabel, not, I wouldn't take it, but Luther Burden, right? Obviously there's just a lot of these guys that are going to be there.
It just opens up the draft a lot more because now at 21 with an additional pick in the 2nd or the 3rd round in this year's class is going to give you a whole bunch of extra maneuverability because even if you say, let's say like you reach on a guy, let's say Loveland isn't there and you don't want to go interior defensive lineman because you just signed 3 guys, you can maybe take a reach on a guy like a Zabel or maybe take a reach on a guy like a wide receiver that's graded to be at the bottom end of the 1st round because you have more like shots at the lottery at that point. You got more lottery tickets. Like that's the whole thing in that situation.
Yeah. All right. So let's get here. Yeah. MC Flowers with a good comment. I was actually just thinking about this when I was talking before. I actually saw that. But that's right now though, too. You know what I mean? Like historically speaking, it just happens to be there's been an uptick in the value. All right. So of tackles, right? Like, so again, historically speaking, offensive line, I mean, it's always valued, right? But the past, I would say, let's say within the last decade, like you've seen the contracts, the value, particularly at right tackle. Left tackle took off first, and right tackle left tackle because that's historically speaking where the defense's premium edge rusher was, right? They were on the right side. So, and because it's the quarterback's blind side most of the time. Obviously, you have left-handed quarterbacks, but the reason that left tackle is considered the premium offensive line pick, generally speaking, right tackle has come up, but longer is because it's most of the quarterback's blind side. So that's where the defensive coordinators stick their best pass rusher because it just creates a scenario where the quarterback can't see the rush coming, right? So it's really only in the past, it's a handful of years that the right tackle has kind of caught up somewhat to that left tackle. And then subsequently the interior, the offensive line, you've seen even guards more than in the past sneaking into the first round, not as much as the tackles, but so there's a trend going on. Like I said, last year you saw 9 offensive tackles get drafted in the first round. Guess what? Most of them were starting for their team. So right there, you got
the only one who didn't have the guy starting.
Right.
I think if we look back at it.
Yeah. Right. So there's a trend going on. And I'm not diffusing or discounting, I should say, the point. It's valid. But that doesn't mean that you can't get your guys. It's just the trend right now. Historically speaking, I believe it is otherwise. So anywho, it's a great point though. And if you're paying attention, hey, trends aren't to be ignored either, but that's because like we're talking about with that 5th-year option, the skyrocketing value of the position causes people to draft certain positions high because you want to, paying that price in free agency, which is why you see safeties, look, safeties, linebackers, running backs 20 years ago, dude, it was perfectly acceptable to take a running back with a top 5 pick, a linebacker with a top 5 pick. That shit is out the window. You see 1 or 2, but linebackers that were 10 years ago, easy first round picks are sliding to the 2nd and 3rd round fucking yearly now.
And it's like, and those trends turn around really quickly because of
the evolution of the game,
and it just
right.
It just turns around super quickly. Like you were just saying, running backs going in the first, linebackers don't go in the first anymore. Like safeties going in the first, that doesn't happen anymore. That's just not the reality of the game. It's just, we took a safety at 3. Imagine that happening now.
At 3, no, 6.
Was it 6? Oh, it was 6.
Yeah, 6.
It was 6.
Still,
right.
So point's the same.
The same, whatever.
Yeah,
we took a safety in the top 10.
Yeah.
That would never happen nowadays. And
and it shouldn't have happened.
There is a guy that's worthy of that pick in this year's class, in my opinion, in
no
Malachi
doubt.
Starks.
No doubt.
But he's not going to go there.
Yeah, I think Dom has him in his top 10 players in the whole draft.
I do too.
Yeah, and it's
I have him in my top. I fluctuate, and I have him in that. Sometimes he's 6, sometimes he's 8. It depends on how strong the coffee is that morning. But yeah.
So yeah, man. But anyway, yeah. I mean, look, all of it's valid, and that's why that's why this is so fun. Is that a lot of the time, what separates these arguments is this thin little line, But like we're saying, not 10, 15 years ago, the NFL was a different place. Actually, 2011, fucking that CBA changed everything. It changed the entire NFL. And how we look at positions like tight ends, running backs, linebackers, safeties slid to that back row where just a few years ago, taking a middle linebacker in the first now, dude, he better be an animal because you just don't do it anymore. You see 1 or 2 in the first round now. It's crazy. When I was growing up, dude, grabbing that middle linebacker was a priority. And getting that running back was a priority. Now it's like, you can get running. Yeah, they're only going to last a couple years. You just, retrade, fucking cycle them in and out. It's crazy. All right. With that said, we got to get out of here. We did a fat 31 minutes over for you guys tonight. Good time. Tigo, you got anything coming up for everybody?
just draft prep stuff, like looking at the players, looking at the different scenarios, doing deep dives on Moogs and Glenn and like what these different scenarios play out like and what might happen, what might not happen. Like, honestly, it's just addressing this year as how can we win as many games as possible? That's it. Regardless of all of the, you like Justin Fields, you hate Justin Fields, whatever, how can we win as many games as possible? So we're going to be tackling that as hard and fast as possible. Red Bean!
I know we're trying to get out of here, but thank you. So Tigo, when is that?
This week, sometime this week, if not this weekend at the latest.
All right, the link to Tigo's channel is at the top of the stream. The top of the description of this stream. Make sure you show Tigo some love. Don't forget to subscribe to the Talkin' Jets channel here as well. We could use your support as always. Don't forget to hit the like button, everybody. But Red Bean checking in to close us out says it's simple. All right, here we go. It's simple. We're overcomplicating it all. Just draft the best player. I'd rather have a great fullback. Oh, you're losing me, buddy. Than a mediocre wide receiver. Not me. Draft good players and avoid the lousy ones. Yep, that's the goal.
Easier said than done.
Easier said than done. But that's why you got to look at things like where they come from, their fit, which is why I like fucking Mason Taylor so much. Like, like who's the guy? Everybody's got stuff to work on except for the blue chips, right? That's why you call them that. They're as close to a perfect prospect as you can get, and not even all them hit, but still. You look at somebody, what is their work ethic, Tigo? What are who's likely to apply your techniques, your training, your development, and actually
buy in?
Who's gonna buy in? Which is why I always say, fuck traits, go for the blue collar, go for the football players. I call them my bloody knuckle guys. I like bloody knuckles. Those are the guys that are gonna buy in and go, yes, coach. What do you need, coach? That's the guys I want. I want a team packed full of them, and I'll win some football games.
You want to trade? You want to draft the guys that you're ready to go to war with.
That's right.
It's a gladiator sport, and I think too many people forgot about that.
Too many people
too
forgot.
Slick and too skinny and too fast. No. Fundamentally, this is still a gladiator sport.
That's right.
At the end of the day, what's going to win and lose you games is the gladiator part of this game.
That's right.
Can you break a tackle? Can you break somebody? Can you like? Can
the
you,
guy
can you
with
bring that guy down?
The guy ringing the bell wins over the guy who gets his bell rung every day of the week. That's the way to do it. Unless the guy's so fucking shifty that the guy ringing the bell can't get him. You know what I mean? But anyway, right. It's a gladiator sport. Thank you, Red Bean, for capping us tonight. Good evening to you. Good evening to everybody. I'll see you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. for the Thursday Thick of It on GreenBean Jetsfan. Like the stream on your way out and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you guys. Have a good night. We will see you next time.